Now the checkout team reports on the sun-seeking habit that could be killing us.
Hello, welcome to Checkout. Are you looking forward to basking on a holiday beach for 2 weeks this summer? Have you ever considered the dangers? This week we look at the rise in skin cancer in Britain. How can we protect ourselves? Did you pay a small fortune for a cup final ticket? Does the price of Wimbledon seats make you seethe? Why do tickets for the big events cost so much? In Checkmate, Simon Walton takes one viewer on the trail of the agency who marked up her ticket by 300%.
And have you bought a washing machine this week, or a new car, or signed a contract for double glazing? Did you read the small print? This week, Checkout looks at how small print can cost you dearly, and we want you to help us find the worst example in Britain. But first, some welcome news. 5 weeks ago, we investigated school bus safety, and we called for new rules to ensure that school buses displayed warning signs and flashing lights to alert drivers that children were getting on and off. Lights just like these on an American school bus. Well, the Under-Secretary of State for Transport, Robert Atkins, who appeared on our programme, has said that new legislation will mean school buses must display both a distinctive sign and warning lights. The changes aren't yet law. At present, they're recommendations in a government consultation document. But if you want to make sure these rules are introduced, and quickly, write to us, and we'll be delighted to pass your letters on to Mr. Atkins.
This weekend, 200,000 of us will be heading for the sun and a suntan. But there's increasing evidence that the quest for the 20th century status symbol can carry a lethal price. Experts have long warned that excessive exposure to sun can lead to the most deadly form of skin cancer, malignant melanoma. In Britain, the number of cases has doubled in the last 10 years. It killed over 1,000 people last year alone. With the onset of the holiday season, Checkout has been investigating the do's and don'ts of the sun worship that's become an annual ritual.
Suntans are great. They make you look healthier, they make you feel better. If you look brown, people comment on it, ask if you've been away. Just make you feel good.
It's an ego booster.
Yeah, definitely.
Just get a bit red one day, couple of days of brown.
Do you like being brown?
Yeah, that's why we wear white T-shirts.
I don't know, we're all going to die someday, so I don't see... I think it's worth it, you know, just to feel good.
A mother with 2 children, Liz Davis spent years soaking up the sun, but she's now paid the price. Last year, she discovered she had a malignant melanoma.
I always wanted a tan, and I would rush out into the sun at the slightest ray of sunshine.
Did you tan easily? Were you a person that went brown?
No.
It was hard work.
It was very hard work. I never got this tan. I pursued it for years, and it never really happened.
When did you first find out that you had skin cancer, and what were the signs?
I had a large mole that started to grow. They decided to cut it out straight away because it looked peculiar. But they were quite reassuring even at that point. They didn't think it was malignant, but they would just cut it out just to be sure. And I went back a week later and they said that it was malignant.
So then what happened?
Then they said that to be sure they'd have to cut away a larger area of my leg to make sure the cancer hadn't spread, and made arrangements for me to go into hospital very quickly. I think I was lucky in that something prompted me to go and do something about it at that point, because if I'd left it, the story might be worse.
So you, in a sense, you caught it early. What do you think would have happened if you'd have ignored that mole that was on your lower leg?
Well, presumably the cancer would just have run rampant.
You presume you can't ever sunbathe again?
My GP has said your sunbathing days are over. The doctor at the hospital advised me just to be very, very cautious. And so I wouldn't dream of just lying out in the sun now.
You have 2 children. What's your view about them and sunbathing now?
I'm very careful with them because I believe that if you burn as a child, that that can start something off.
What do you say now, with hindsight, to those people who continue to ignore the advice?
it's very short-sighted. I mean, if you do manage to get a good tan, it only lasts for a short time anyway, and there could be a very high price to pay for it.
Yet for many, brown still means beautiful, and burning is often seen as no more than an awkward hiccup in the process. But burning is the body's way of telling you your skin has been damaged. The more you burn, the more you increase the risk of developing skin cancer in later life. There are several forms. The least common but most dangerous is the one suffered by Liz Davis, malignant melanoma. It's twice as common amongst women as men. Second only to lung cancer in women, it's Britain's fastest growing cancer. So how does the sun damage your skin? Amongst the sun's rays, there are 3 types of ultraviolet light: UVA, UVB and UVC. Of these, we can forget about C. It never reaches the Earth's surface. But UVB does, and when you sunbathe, it's absorbed by the thin top layer of skin, the epidermis. This is how you tan and burn. It's in the epidermis that a malignant melanoma may develop, and experts agree UVB is often the cause. UVA also penetrates the skin, but it goes deeper into the lower layer, the dermis. UVA rays do not burn and tan the skin much slower. But scientists now think there may also be a link between UVA and cancer. But it is known, at the very least, UVA ages the skin and can cause premature wrinkling and sagging. With me in the studio is Dr. Neil Smith, who is a consultant dermatologist and director of the Skin Tumour Clinic at St John's Hospital, London. That all seems very frightening. What are the signs to look for?
Well, the main signs to look for on your skin is a mole, a change in a mole, particularly a dark mole, one that bleeds or irritates at all. And people with that sort of situation should seek medical advice.
Is it preventable?
It is preventable. I would stress that most causes of these changes in moles do not represent malignant change, and even if it is melanoma, then most can be cured. That's an important point to get across.
Who particularly are most at risk? What kinds of people? What types of people?
The people at most at risk are those with fair skin, blue eyes, red hair, freckly people, and most of those people know that they're at risk because they burn rather than tan in the sun. I think there's a bit of an ego problem in that people pretend they can tan when they can't and say, oh, I never go red, I always go brown, and they deceive themselves.
And what about children? Are they really at risk?
It's a very important point, I think, children. I think adults, to some extent, can speak for themselves, and most people know the facts. Children you see running about on beaches are really very much at risk. They can burn easily, and the damage that's done then will manifest itself, say, 20 years later as a malignant growth.
Is it always going to be a malignant melanoma, or is it that there are other things?
All skin cancer is related to sun exposure. There is a slight difference between common skin cancer and malignant melanoma. It does seem that the most dangerous cancer, the one we've been concentrating on, that's the malignant melanoma, is related to short, sharp bursts of sun exposure.
So there's a clear risk involved in excessive exposure to the sun, but it is preventable. But the problem is getting that message across. In the country where beach culture is a way of life, skin cancer is given a high profile.
The sun's shining down, we're so desperate to brown. But skin cancer isn't so hot, no it's not. So if you take a run or work in the sun, should you sizzle like a sausage? Most certainly not. Be especially careful about small kiddies. Just say these simple words. Slop, slap. It's so simple. Slip, slop, slap.
Well, I go to Portugal normally and I use baby oil, things like that, in the second week. Nothing on the first week.
I don't burn, so I just use coconut oil, which isn't a very good protection, but I don't tend to need it. I don't burn.
Chris Moore, you were in the film earlier on. Have you seen anything now to change your mind, or do you still think that brown is beautiful?
I still think that brown is beautiful, but I believe that you have to find some sort of compromise. I think it would be pretty unrealistic to be out of the sun completely.
These sun protection factors that we see down here, I mean, are they all the same? I mean, they both, these two here say factor 8. Is that kind of a standard thing?
Well, there is a lot of confusion about sun protection factors. These two creams, for example, are both labelled sun protection factor 8. They have different formulations. In fact, on scientific testing, have actually different effects on sun protection. So I think you have to be careful about a cream you do select. My advice would be to find one that suits you and stick with that brand.
Do they filter out all the rays? What about UVA?
UVA has always been incriminated less in causing cancer than UVB, although earlier in the programme we heard there may be evidence this does cause cancer. More and more creams are filtering out UVA now, but it's very difficult to assess how much. There's no universal standard.
So if you've got a sun protection factor, say, of 15, is that the same for UVA?
No, it's not. That relates entirely to UVB. Many creams will say UVA protection also, but it's a rather vague term, and we don't know quite how much UVA it filters out.
So what's the best thing to do?
I would go for the high sun protection factor with UVA, and that's the safest cream to use. The aim of all this, really, going back to what Chris was saying earlier, is to prevent acute burning. I think you must tan gradually and not get burnt, particularly to blistering.
OK. There are other ways, too, of getting a tan, and you can do that without going even anywhere near the sun. At the touch of a button, an all-year tan. Sunbeds give off almost entirely UVA, but in much higher doses than ordinary sunlight, because UVA tans slowly and doesn't burn. It's all electric, but the effect's the same.
You look good, feel healthy. With a climate like this, you've got to take a sunbed to do that, otherwise you won't make it.
And how often do you go on the sunbeds?
Maybe like 3 times a week.
I use sunbeds once a week on average. More if I'm about to go away, or more in the winter actually, because in the summer I tend to go out in the sun as well as the sunbeds.
Do you use them as a permanent tan, or just to kind of top up your tan you get from outside?
Permanent tan.
Neil, lots of people use sunbeds, and a lot of them think it's a good idea because it prepares you for the real thing. Is that true or false?
It's not true, I'm afraid. The tan you get from a UVA sunbed does not protect you from the damage from natural sunlight and the possible skin cancer damage later on.
So you can't actually go on the beach and lie on it and continue to
think
tan?
You're as protected as you would be naturally being brown from the sun, no.
Is that dangerous?
Well, it's dangerous because you're kidding yourself to think you're protected from the sun already.
So what are the do's and don'ts about using sunbeds?
Well, realising that for a start, and secondly, wearing protective goggles always to avoid eye damage. And thirdly, I think you have to be very careful if you're on any form of drugs or medication, and check with your doctor if you're on any of these drugs before a regular sunbed use.
Chris, are you going to continue to use sunbeds?
Yes, I will.
You're still going to use them, despite what you've heard?
But I'll use them less frequently, and I'll be more aware of in general.
Chris?
I certainly didn't know about the sunbeds not protecting you, even though you're brown. That's very important.
Great. Chris, thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Smith, thank you.
Thank you.
The message is clear. Skin cancers can be prevented, and there are ways you can enjoy the sun and get a tan safely. If you want more details on how you can protect yourself and your children, there's more information in this week's checklist. It costs £1, and details of the address follow at the end of the programme. Now, this week's cult classic, the universal, practical and royally endorsed Barbour jacket.
South Shields in Tyne and Wear. Here you'd find a barber shop where you can't get your hair cut, but you can buy oilskin coats. In 1927, the Barbour family struck gold with a special wax formula which makes cotton cloth both waterproof and thorn-proof. It was a favourite with rural folk, but the jacket was soon hijacked by townies in search of that Lord of the Manor look. These days, it's just as much at home in the aisles of your local supermarket as on a North Sea trawler or among royalty. The company now make 14 styles, priced between £55 and £120. Though popularity has brought many imitations, available cheaper through markets and magazines. One owner, a Mr. King of Bulawayo, survived an attack by an enraged beast to discover his barber was also zebra-proof.
Now, put on your best spectacles and get out your magnifying glasses, because we're about to look at some very small print indeed. This is a British Telecom agreement. You sign it when you want to hire a phone. 5,152 words are packed into 168 square inches. Makes my eyes ache to look at it. Well, small print like this is the bane of everybody's life. Of course, if you've got a suspicious mind, you may wonder why, if these clauses are so important, and they most likely are, why they're tucked away in tiny space in tiny writing. Well, a major report yet to be published is highly critical of all of this and reveals that the vast majority of us overlook the small print. Mrs Cully wrote to us from Stevenage. Carol, how did you fall foul of small print?
We had a dolphin salesman came and measured our bathroom, etc. He gave us a price and then introduced us to interest-free credit for 4 months. Like, hang on to your money, you pay no interest. And as it turns out, we are paying interest and our bathroom still isn't finished. So
you didn't read the small print?
I didn't read the small print, no.
Why didn't you read the small print?
Well, after 4 hours of a salesman, and he was a nice guy, you sort of trusted him. Yeah, we just signed and didn't read.
Well, Carol Cully's agreement, printed in a tasteful grey on grey to really make your eyes ache, ran into 1,417 words on one sheet. Others in the small print league table are this hire car agreement, again that nice grey on grey, 1,432 words in 88 square inches. And finally, nearly at the top of our league table, this agreement for removal services, and you may want to visit your optician after this, 3,239 words packed into 96 square inches. Well, joining us now is John Ward from the National Consumer Council. John, the Consumer Minister has told us when we asked him about all this that people, of course, should read the small print. Of course they should. He's got a point, hasn't he?
Yes, that's certainly the law at the moment. But we think it's actually increasingly coming into question. And the vast majority of us don't read the small print. And very many times we fall foul of it. I mean, for example, the average number of words on a page in a book is 300 to 350 words, and yet we're faced with contracts of 5,000 words on one page. It's just impossible for the consumers to read and understand a lot of this. Apart from that, it's often expressed in legal jargon. In America and in Canada, it's possible for a customer to actually use as a defence in court if they're in breach of a contract that they didn't understand. It was in gobbledygook, it was so obscure, and that is a defence in law. Now, we'd like to see that here. And very briefly, how can our viewers help you with your campaign? Because I know you're going to publish this report. Yes, well, they should protest every time that they're asked to sign a contract that's either too big or badly printed or obscurely expressed. They should say, this is rubbish, this is gobbledygook, please use plain English. Thanks very much, John. Well, if you have a ridiculous example of small print, send it to us and we'll send it to the Plain English campaign. Next, Talkback, and this week, nightclub bouncers in the north have their say.
Bouncers aren't people that just like beating people up. We're here to do a job.
I don't think our reputation as being thugs is thoroughly deserved. I can understand why we've got it. It's basically because anyone you're going to be throwing out is not going to be too popular with them.
If they're drunk and, you know, they're making a fool of themselves, knocking people about, we have to ask them to leave the club. And we just take them out with, you know, minimum force.
We're not after any trouble like that. It's just good money. We like doing the job.
I ended up with a pint glass smashed in my face, which I say luckily I didn't get cut with, but my nose was broken in 4 places.
We're here to judge when they're going overboard. And if we think they're going overboard, then we have to ask them to leave the club.
I got a glass in the eye and a glass down my back. I had 15 stitches.
If somebody's rough for you, obviously you're going to have to use the same force back to get them out of the club. That's the main concern.
You have to be patient, you know, you have to keep your temper and, you know, good at talking to people, really, and that's about it.
Obviously you need big lads in case there is a big fight, and you're going to need big lads to sort it out, but size isn't just the only qualification for being a doorman. I think you've got to use your head as well.
If you work with the public and feel you'd like your say, write to us marking your envelope Talkback. We'll give you the chance to answer back. Meanwhile, here's Simon Walton and Checkmate.
Jackie White wrote to me from Dorking in Surrey. She bought tickets to see her guitar hero, Eric Clapton. A ticket agent charged her £220 for 4 tickets. She was horrified when she realised that she'd been charged £150 over the odds. Now she wants to know, how can they get away with it?
I telephoned the agency that were advertising in the paper and asked if they had any tickets for the Clapton concert and how much they were. And, well, I said at the time it was a good job I was sitting down when he told me, because he said £55 each ticket.
I'd like 4, please.
I was a bit startled, as you can imagine, but then it was even worse when they dropped through the door, and opening the envelope I found the tickets were actually face value £17.50, and I'd paid £55. To make it worse, 2 of the 4 tickets I ordered were for friends, so I had to ask them for £110 for something that was worth only £35. And, I mean, I felt guilty, I felt annoyed, angry, all at once.
So it's going to be a great summer for live music. Phil Collins is coming back, Rolling Stones in town, Madonna too. But have you seen how much some unauthorised agents are charging for tickets? Sometimes 2 or 3 times the face value.
Yes, I have. I paid £55 for an Eric Clapton ticket that cost £17.50.
I think it's disgraceful because I think that it's cheating real music fans out of a chance to see somebody they admire. And I think the best thing to do is not to pay inflated prices. Why don't you go and see if you can find a promoter and ask them what they think about it?
Looking at her tickets, Jackie discovered the main promoter was Harvey Goldsmith. Not an easy man to get to see, but after 2 days of phoning and faxing, we made it into his office.
Simon Walton, can I introduce you to Jackie White? Hello.
Pleased to meet you. Good
What
of
do
you
you
to
do?
spend the time.
She's the lady who has the problem with her ticket. She'd
Yeah.
like to just ask you about it. Like to sit down, she'll tell you what it is.
Jackie explained how she was furious at being overcharged by the agency City Tickets, but Harvey denied it was anything to do with him.
Sorry that you've obviously been duped, as many other people have. And I'm afraid the blame goes, A, with the government, because there is no legislation whatsoever to deal with ticket touting. In fact, when the controversy over Wimbledon broke out last year or the year before, there seems to be positive backing for our wonderful friends. And what has happened is they've gone, quotes, legitimate by opening up these shady box offices up and down the country, and particularly in London. And my second problem goes to our fellow wonderful media, the newspapers, who take the ads for these companies. We've time and time again asked them not to take these ads, asked them to check out who these people are, and they are basically allowing you to be, the public to be duped.
But you were the promoter of this concert. You originally had all the tickets. Can't you have more control over them to stop them getting into the hands of these dodgy...
The only way I can have more control over it is to physically vet every single person that buys a ticket. We tried that with mail order. It's too complicated. There's no, if you can tell me how to vet 80 or 90,000 people, then I'll be happily do it. I'll happily sit outside my office and wait for 90,000 people to show up and see who they are, and if they come round twice, I presume they're a tout. You tell me how to do it.
But had the agency broken the law by not telling her the face value? Andrew Whittington is a trading standards officer in the city.
The situation is that the Consumer Protection Act 1987 contains offences for giving misleading prices. And in conjunction with the Act, there's a code of practice which specifically says that ticket agencies should tell you the face value of the tickets they're selling. However, this is not part of the legal aspect of the Act, and the way the sections in the Act are worded, there is no offence provided you're told the global figure for whatever you're buying.
So City Tickets had not broken the law, but Jackie still wanted to visit their city office to ask how they justified such a huge markup. We repeatedly phoned and wrote to City Tickets asking them to meet her. They persistently refused. Still, Jackie wanted to try herself, but they wouldn't let her further than the front door.
We just have a lady here who'd like to talk to you about some tickets she bought from you. You won't talk to her? Can you tell me why not? Go away. You want us to go away? All right. Goodbye. Thank you. I'm sorry, Jackie.
Well,
we tried.
We did, but I suppose it was only to be expected, really. Just proves to me that the law really does need tightening up.
Yeah. Oh, well, I'll cheer you up with a song. I shot the ticket.
Awful. Simon Walton, no musician. Well, now, a quick update. 3 weeks ago, we reported on the boom in infertility treatment. We investigated the claims of private clinics and their different success rates. Well, we're happy to say that this important new report highlights Checkout's concerns. And the head of the current watchdog body, Dame Mary Donaldson, has called for a clinic league table and warned some clinics that they could lose their licences if they don't improve their success rates.
That's it for this week. If you have something you want investigating, call us on 071 371 4949 or write to us at Checkout, PO Box 2280, London W14 8YF. I'll repeat that, Checkout, PO Box 2280, London W14 8YF. If you missed any address in this programme, you've a second chance to see us each Saturday morning. Meanwhile, from both of us, goodbye. If you would like details of the items in this week's programme, you can order our fact sheets from Checklist, P.O. Box 4000, London W3 6XJ, or Glasgow G12 9JQ. Mark the envelope Checklist 5 and include a postal order or cheque for £1 made out to Channel 4 TV, or you can ring this credit card line 0839 777799.